Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 28th Lebanon City Council meeting. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Copeland, will you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we'll move on to the roll call members. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mike Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Morris Jones.
Here.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Here.
Brent Wheat.
Here.
Sierra Messenger.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
We have motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to old business. First up is ordinance 2019-09, which is the City of Lebanon 2020 budgets. And this ordinance is on second reading. So I'll turn it over to Tanya to read again.
Okay. Again, this is ordinance number 2019-09. Be it ordained by the Lebanon City Council that for the expenses of Lebanon City Civil City for the year ending December 31st, 2020, the sums herein specified are appropriated and ordered set apart out from several funds herein listed. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect after its passage and approval by the Lebanon City Council. And I'll read the funds to you with the totals. Casino Riverboat is $93,551. The general fund is $11,807,083. Debt service is $300,000. Fire pension is $319,714. Police pension is $243,170. Local road and street, $237,607. Motor vehicle highway, $1,221,097. Park and rec, $1,421,715. Park bond, $382,051. Cum cap improvement is $63,000. Cum cap development is $475,000. Stormwater bond is $563,016. Sanitation, $660,000. Home ruled funds, which are not reviewed by DLGF, are food and beverage, $500,000, and public safety lit, $2,916,378.
Okay. The ordinance has been now read on second reading. Any further discussion from council?
Sure.
Any public comment concerning the 2020 budget? Okay. At this time, would entertain a motion concerning ordinance 2019-09.
I'll make a motion we approve ordinance 2019-09, City of Lebanon 2020 budget.
We have a motion to approve ordinance 2019-09. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That ordinance has been adopted. Next up is ordinance 2019-07, which is the 2020 salaries for city employees.
Okay. Ordinance 2019-07, the salaries of the following employees of the City of Lebanon beginning January 1st, 2020 are as follows, and these are by department. Motor Vehicle Department, $442,395. Parks Department, $647,544. Planning Department, $399,983. Historic Commission, $6,000. Police Department, $2,367,500. Fire Department, $1,696,615. Clerk Treasurer's Office, $129,811. The Mayor's Office, $38,268. Community Development is $66,081. Engineering is $76,491. The Board of Works, there are two members, and they each receive $1,800 for a total of $3,600 a year. City Plan Commission is $9,600. Board of Zoning Appeals is $6,000. Park Board is $3,600. This ordinance shall take effect January 1st, 2020.
The ordinance has been read on second reading. Any further discussion from council? Any public comment? Okay. Would entertain a motion concerning ordinance 2019-07.
I move we approve ordinance 2019-07, the 2020 salaries for the city.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Make it known.
I'm good.
Aye.
I'm good.
Okay.
I was late, I'm sorry.
Abstaining for voting for that one.
Correct, yes.
I make it known, I am abstaining from voting for that.
Okay. I forgot to mention you are excused from that one.
What?
You're excused from voting on that one,
Thank
yes. Okay. So ordinance 2019-07 passed unanimously. Thank you, council. Next up is ordinance 2019-08, which is the 2020 salaries for elected officials.
Okay, this is an ordinance fixing the salaries of elected officials of the city of Lebanon beginning January 1st, 2020. The maximum salaries of the following elected officials of the city of Lebanon, beginning as of that date. Mayor, $57,978. Clerk treasurer, $61,934. Common council is $71,000, which it comes down to the president is now at $11,000, and there are 6 other members at $10,000 each. In addition to the funds paid by the Lebanon Civil City as set out in Section 2 above, the following elected appointed officers to be paid from funds of the municipal utilities are as follows. The mayor, $30,090. Clerk treasurer, $17,204. Deputy clerk treasurer, $27,805. And this ordinance shall take effect January 1st, 2020.
Thank you, Tanya. Any further discussion from council?
No, sir.
Any public comment? Okay. Before we go to vote on that, I want to say my appreciation for council. I know it's always a long budget process to go through that. I think we did a great job this year. We'll have our 4th year in a row where we have our property tax rate frozen, which I think is a great success. And we've also been able to hire additional public safety officials and make critical infrastructure investments in the city. So I appreciate all the hard work that we did to put that together in our workshops and then approve it here tonight. So with that, we'll entertain a motion concerning ordinance 2019-08.
I make a motion we approve ordinance 2019-08, 2020 salaries for elected officials.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that is approved unanimously. Thank you, council. That concludes what I have for old business. Anything from council? Okay, move on to new business then. First up is ordinance 2019-10, which is a consideration of a rezone of 604 North Lebanon Street and 216, 218, 222, or 222, 224 West Chicago Street. And this ordinance is up on first reading. I'll have Ben Bontrager introduce this to it for us.
Good evening, council members. Just give you a little bit of background on this. Let's see if I can find the old school here and use the overhead. Just to kind of give you an idea of the area we're talking about. This is on North Lebanon Street. Found those pieces right here just to the south. Multi-family apartments across the street, and then you'll see area is primarily residential. You have market here on the south, and then Inwell is using this house right here for some of their offices. So the request for you tonight is to rezone everything you see in the yellow from multifamily to neighborhood business. Reason being, I'll let the applicant kind of fill in some. Inwell has a variety of locations around the city where they provide services. What they're looking to do is to consolidate all those facilities into one location, and they'd like it to be as central to the city, to the downtown as possible. They do have a portion of their clientele that doesn't have access to reliable transportation, so they're trying to get it somewhat centrally located so people can walk if they live in the city. This is a location that they were considering. They do have a house that's already there that they're using. They were in the process of remodeling that small little market to put some offices in there, but they would like to rezone this little half block here and build a larger building in order to accommodate all of their services. So they did approach me a couple months ago about rezoning this area. We did have a couple of conversations about it, and I said I wasn't quite sure about it. We did start getting some feedback from neighbors that were concerned about putting commercial zoning into this primarily residential area. When I started putting together a staff report for this, you start looking at the criteria, and I'll go through some of those criteria here in a second from the staff report, which you did get a copy of. They weren't able to meet the criteria for a rezone. So just to walk through some of those criteria that the Plan Commission reviews, consistency with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan for this area designates it as residential, so this rezone to the commercial neighborhood business zoning classification would not be consistent with that land use designation. Compatibility with adjacent uses. You had a matrix in your council report that identified that essentially the uses around it are all zoned multifamily residential and are primarily single-family residential uses. So it's not compatible with the surrounding land uses. In terms of desirability, we determined that a rezone to commercial land use would have additional traffic, additional use in that area that would not necessarily be consistent with residential uses. So it's determined to not be desirable land use. Impact on property values, again, if you're adding commercial uses to a primarily residential area, even though this is a higher traffic area on Lebanon Street, but adding additional commercial uses in a primarily residential area would likely not have a good impact on property values. And responsible growth is determined that the rezone to commercial land use or commercial zoning classification would represent a significant departure from the existing residential zoning classifications. So we determined that it would not represent responsible growth and development to make this change to the commercial land use. So staff did recommend unfavorably when it went to the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission did hold a public hearing and review the application. And they also voted 7-0 to send this on to the council with an unfavorable recommendation. So that is generally what's before you tonight, is this rezone application coming to you with an unfavorable recommendation. Just kind of process-wise, we have an advisory plan commission, so they don't do the final vote on any rezones. They provide advice or recommendation to the council. So the council is the ultimate authority on a rezone application. So this comes to you with their recommendation, and you guys have the ultimate decision to vote for or against the rezone application. So with that, I'd just be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ben from the council?
Is the owner going to talk today?
Yeah, I was going to call them up afterwards.
The applicant, Mr. Gutwein, is here if you have some questions specifically for him about the proposal for the site.
Okay, I'd prefer to comment after I hear what that person.
And we can always call Ben back up too. So, Mr. Gutwein, if you'd like to step forward.
I did have a question
sorry.
for Ben.
Apologize.
So, for those of us that have a long memory, the old Tansel's Market.
Yeah.
What is that currently zoned?
It is, I believe, a zone neighborhood business. And actually,
Okay.
the house, that little cutout area just northeast that you can kind of see here, this house, that's also zone neighborhood business. That was
Right.
kind of spot zoned at one point, kind of
Okay.
unique. You wouldn't typically do something like that.
Yeah.
But at one point that was, I assume, zoned for Inwell to use that for their offices.
Okay.
So this would be a much more intense, it'd be a two-story office, again, it's being proposed, a two-story office building, about 12,000 square feet total is what they're proposing.
So and I have I'm proposing a hypothetical. If someone bought the old Tansel's Market and wanted to put something in there, it could be a neighborhood business, right? That would be
Yeah, I'll
illegal
have to
use?
now that I say that, they actually came in for, Mr. Gutwein actually was part of that project as well. They came in for a
okay.
use variance to allow Inwell to use that for some of their offices. So it may actually be zoned multifamily. I'd have to double check on that.
Okay.
But I do know that house, that kind of northeast corner right there is zoned
Okay.
neighborhood business. But I
And
do
then
think
what
that
is
market-
Domino's Pizza?
That is also zoned multifamily. So you got a lot of non-conforming uses along this
Yeah.
corridor, but a lot of them have pre-existed any of that zoning. So
Yeah.
before it was Domino's, it was a gas station, and that gas station was
Yeah.
there a really long time. So
So isn't Inwell remodeling the Tansel Market building?
I'll let the applicant kind of talk about the status of that, but they were in the process of doing that.
So they're already there in two different locations.
They're in 4 or 5 locations.
Well, just
around the
there
city. But
on that
there,
lot.
yeah, they've got 2 small facilities right
Yeah,
there, 2
okay.
small buildings.
Any other questions for Ben at this time? We can
No.
bring it back up. Mr. Gutwein, if you wanted to explain?
Yes, Andrew Gutwein. I think I've had the pleasure to meet most everybody. Been working on this project for Inwell for quite a while. We started off with all the numerous places. Actually, my start with Inwell is actually back with Cummins. So we did a project on the south side with Cummins Behavioral Health across from the South Fire Station. So that was the beginning of it. And had the opportunity again to do another project. One of the big problems that they experienced with the Cummins facility is the lack of access from a lot of their clientele that live downtown. I mean, a number of times it's been brought up that there is a lack of transportation from a good portion of their clients. And statistics show that kind of goes hand in hand, lack of transportation. So we look for a site that happened to be within walking distance of most of the housing in Lebanon. And after even doing a study and ignoring where the existing location was at, it brought us right back to right in the same neighborhood that we're already looking at. Unfortunately, it's correct that the whole neighborhood is zoned multifamily. And we're talking about residential. It is zoned a residential use over there, but it's actually zoned multifamily, which doesn't allow for single-family uses. So even our single-family uses in that neighborhood are non-conforming uses. So a lot of that neighborhood is non-conforming use, and the amount of businesses, if you go through there and walk up and down the sidewalk and look at them, there are quite a few businesses that are located either people that run businesses out of their homes, or the obvious ones, Domino's, how you classify the church, whether that's a business or another type of use. We do have a nice facility that we looked at to place on that site and tried to model it and make it fit into the neighborhood architecturally. And I think we have a good project, a good entity in Inwell. We have a location that is right in the heart of the people that need it. And I think that speaks pretty well to what's going on and Inwell's mission to service everybody there. Ideally, would you want it zoned somewhere else? Would you want it sitting next to another office building? Yeah, that makes life easier for all of us, but it's not a perfect world, so we can't do that. We've got to put it where the people are, where the people have access to, and to get it done. I think one of the big things that Inwell's also found about 610 North Lebanon Street is the amount of traffic that's there that exists. And this isn't a residential neighborhood where you have 100 cars, 200 cars, 1,000 cars going through a day. This is one of the heaviest traffic roads in Lebanon. The traffic count here is over 15,000 cars a day on a two-lane piece of road. So this isn't, 100 years ago when the houses were all built there, it was a residential neighborhood. When you put 15,000 cars on a two-lane road, that's tough to make that a residential neighborhood. And so that's kind of where we're at. I think we'd like to put the project there. It'd be a nice project for the city. Be a great project for all the clients that need services like Inwell produces. We'd just like to be able to put it there. You have anything to add, Doug? Okay. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Gutwein?
What would be the traffic, the proposed increase in traffic for Inwell if they had a two-story building there? I mean, what would be the projected automobile traffic, and what's the projected pedestrian traffic?
Yeah, I think no matter what you do, so this site actually, Jerry asked, I told him he didn't need to come tonight, but this site actually back in the 50s at some point started to get some of the houses that were on a portion of it raised. So it at some point it had 4 or 5 houses across the whole piece. So today there's less traffic than there was at that point. Going forward, no matter what you do, if you put apartments on it, you're going to generate quite a bit of traffic. I'd have to look and see how many units. In fact, last Monday night, we had apartment developers of the flats that were here that probably could have shared with, some traffic estimates and things. If we look to the Cummins building is about 8,000 square feet, very similar services that they provide. And Cummins originally wanted that overparked. I think we have 53 spots out there, and usually it's the 4, 6, 8 company cars around back, and then in front, there's 2 or 3 cars. Hopefully, Inwell utilizes this quite a bit better, so we might see, the other facility at the north end of town. I'm trying to think, there's probably, at most a dozen cars there at a time. So it's not a huge traffic generator. The other part to that is going to a use like this is a daytime, for the most part, is a daytime service. So you get 9 to 6 are probably the heaviest hours. And then at night and weekends, then, very limited use unless there was some emergency need to come in and provide service if somebody was in need. But nights and weekends, where if you go ahead and build the apartments that it's zoned for right now, you've got use 24 hours a day. So nights and weekends, it's probably heavier than a use like this.
In terms of appointment volumes?
So we need you to come up here. We have, I'm sure, a large audience watching at home, so we make sure that they can hear you too.
I'm Doug McGuire. I'm one of the partners in Inwell. I just wanted to help answer Mr. Kincaid's question. On a low day, we average about 100 appointments a day, and this is in all of our offices and includes the ones in the office in Zionsville. On our high days, we might approach 200. So our appointments are a little bit different than a primary care office, for example. Our appointments last from 45 minutes to an hour. So we're not really a high traffic generator in terms of how many people come and go. So I think it'll be much less than an apartment building where you've got people coming and going all day long, in and out multiple times. But this is probably 800, probably 700 to 1,000 appointments a week, and that again includes Zionsville. So I would say Lebanon's maybe 75% of that.
And to clarify, you would be consolidating all of your current locations into this one, or those other locations would stay?
We would try to consolidate as much as we can. We've got 2 facilities. One is Sylvia's Child Advocacy Center that actually is proposed to move into this new building if we get it. And then we also have some services at Mental Health America that would stay there. It's our day reporting center.
Okay.
So we would consolidate the Lakeshore Drive, the current 610 location, which is currently zoned neighborhood business, and Child Advocacy Center if we can. So those 3 locations.
Okay. And would the house go, I know we're not talking about the plan tonight, but would the current house go away?
Yes.
The construction of the building? Okay.
Hopefully.
Just want to, like I said, do want to focus, we're just talking about the rezone tonight, not necessarily the actual plan of the building, so.
So the house that you currently are in, that Dale Smith owns, I think, you're going to buy that and put the building facing Lebanon Street?
We have that house under contract to buy.
Okay, so the building was going to go on that lot plus the one to the south with parking in the back,
Correct.
utilizing the 4 grassy areas in the back?
Yes.
Okay. Access off of Chicago North or West Street?
Chicago Street.
Yeah.
Be the primary access off of it. Yeah, the back of the site is actually in floodplain. So those 4 lots to the west, the western section of that has to be parking because it can't be used parking green space and things. So it can't be 2 separate structures. Well, because of that floodplain issue, you've got to kind of stack it all in one area of the lot.
You could build on, but then you'd have the expense of the flood insurance.
Well, there's a bunch of hoops to get through to
Yeah.
get them to allow you to do that, yeah.
I think you can raise the ground like 6 or 8 inches, and then you could build there, but it would be expensive.
Any
So
further?
you
go ahead.
have, you think about 70 appointments in a facility if it was there?
That would be our low day.
Your low
and
day,
a higher
70
day
to
would-
100 possible?
Yes, and on our peak days, it would probably be closer to 150.
Okay, and so how many of those people will be driving to that? I'm assuming they drive, they walk, however they can get there, correct?
Correct, and I don't have a number for that. It's, as Lynette, my partner, articulated last week at the meeting, it comes into play a lot of times during a crisis situation when somebody needs to get to the office quickly and they might or might not have transportation. It happens with some of the youth in the area that people will ride their bike over. Kids will walk from the school for some of the regular services, but I couldn't put a number on it. And just in general, the accessibility, for whatever reason, improves when it's close to the center of town versus having to drive. It may not seem like it, but it's something that we've noticed just being there at the 610 building.
I'm sorry to seem ignorant, but I really don't know anything about what your company does. So
Okay.
Can you just give me a
I
little brief
apologize.
description of what Inwell is and what you do?
We are mental health services, mental health, behavioral health, addiction treatment, just everything in that spectrum of behavioral health and mental health.
Okay, you're not housing people there.
We are not housing people, no.
Okay.
It's like I said, it's appointments, typically last 45 minutes to an hour for an individual person.
How many people would be working in a facility there on a full-time basis?
We planned on 32 offices, so probably about 32. We employ about 70 people, full and part-time, probably 45 to 50 full-time equivalents, largely professional staff, some hourly clerical staff as well. They would all be located there.
I guess,
And these people are currently working already in 3 different locations in Lebanon.
Correct. And so we have some extra staff to accommodate front office services, checking people in and whatnot, so we get some efficiencies operationally from this.
I understand why you would want to merge everybody together and put them on one spot. I guess my biggest concern would be, right now, you're looking at, what'd you say, 37 employees there and maybe 70 appointments there. That's just a lot more added traffic in that intersection that's already really a bad intersection. Really kind of concerns me to have that much more traffic in there. I know those working there are in and out, and they could be going different directions, I understand that, but you got a lot of those that be coming in off of Lebanon Street, and that intersection is just not the easiest intersection, to turn into either direction, really. It's not the safest one, so I understand trying to move everybody together. I think that's a good idea on your part, so that's my concern.
I've got 2 questions. First off, do we have an overall budget for this project? And do you anticipate looking to abandon that alley that goes down the middle of the parcel?
Take the second one first. The alley, it really doesn't, the way it lays out, it really doesn't make any difference whether we leave the alley in place
Okay.
or not, so.
We're not anticipating putting a building over the top of it or trying to do
Oh,
anything
no,
like that?
no,
Okay.
it's- The building sits actually in what's the green space in the existing building, so everything in the front.
Okay.
And then overall budget, actually Lynette covered that last time, that she said she's very happy that these guys aren't a nonprofit, so they, plan on paying tax on it. And, yeah, it gets kind of scary when you get up into, the budget looks like it's about 3.2 right now. So it's not a cheap building, it's an expensive site to build on. That's kind of the other thing. I guess there have been some people that said maybe it was a cheap site or something. It's not. It's, anytime you build in town, it gets expensive, so all of our stormwater takes a lot more work and structures and everything to get put into. So it's a big commitment, and these guys have to fund that. It takes a huge commitment. We're probably 30% higher than going out and building at a site like the Cummins facility. It's a big deal.
And I've got one more question. At your other offices, you're dealing with folks in crisis sometimes. Has there been much call for law enforcement at your other offices? If you put everybody together, is it going to create a greater need for law enforcement?
This is where I wish Lynette was here because she's better at answering that type of question, but probably not in the way that you think. I don't even know. I mean, occasionally it happens.
Sure,
but it's
but
pretty
it can
rare.
happen any place.
Yeah, it's not common. And she, sometimes, I don't even know how to describe the circumstances where that would occur, but it's, sometimes if we have to do an immediate detention, somebody needs to be taken to the psychiatric hospital. Sometimes they'll go voluntarily, sometimes they want to go, sometimes there's conditions where, the law enforcement has to be called because there's statutes that, can make certain things happen, but that's not a high-frequency event at all.
Okay.
Has there been any, I don't know if this is not necessarily directed towards you guys, but does anybody know any studies, can that area handle that much increased traffic? That, I mean, the city would have to put in, maybe crosswalks, things like that. I mean, if kids are coming from school, they're going to need to be crossing 32, or 39, which could be dangerous. I mean, that's a really busy road to be having people walking and increase in traffic all over that area.
So I don't believe we have not completed our traffic impact study for that, for town yet, so it's harder for us to say that, other than, I know, Ben, is there anything, I mean, I think we haven't gotten there because we don't have we don't have a proposal yet, correct?
Maybe I just do want to emphasize one point here. We're getting into the weeds on a project that we're not necessarily considering as part of this rezone. So this project is not tied to the rezone. You're not approving a project. You're approving a rezone to a commercial zoning classification. So let's say, for example, this budget gets too salty and they can't do it, and they say, we're going to have to look at some other site. Now you have a property that is zoned commercially, that a variety of different commercial uses could go there, which include things like gas stations and other things like that. So what you need to consider is whether the neighborhood business zoning classification is appropriate for its property, insulated from the proposal that Inwell's doing, because that's not necessarily, that rezone would allow a number of things. That's not tied to the rezone. So we don't have any plans yet other than a real conceptual layout. We haven't looked at that at all. So that's really, we're emphasizing the fact that it's
At this point, we're just looking at the
zoning
rezone of the,
district, whether that's appropriate for this site or not.
okay. Any additional questions?
Well, just maybe a couple comments is that, I've got the planning report here, and the 5 areas that they've outlined. It says the subject property is designated for residential use on the future land use map and promotes a variety of residential housing types. So and it's multifamily, so regarding traffic, if they put an apartment building on that site that has, I don't know how many apartments you could put on there, but let's say it's 15. Traffic count on 15 apartments is going to be more and more often throughout the 24-hour cycle than that business. Secondly, is that business is already there, and on the North Lebanon Street property, and then now in the Tansel's Market property, they're already going to be there. So that traffic, minus the building out there behind Burger King, that building they're already going to be busy there already. So, I mean, they're already there. We've already said yes to that. We changed the zoning on the Tansel Market building, or you made a variance on that building so they could do that.
The zoning didn't change. It's still zoned residential, but they got a use variance that allowed a very limited scope of what they could do there. A rezone, obviously, is a totally different thing. It allows a variety of land uses to be there. So in a use variance case, we can limit the scope of what happens on that property a little bit better than we can on a rezone. So that's why, of course, it was existing building, so it made more sense to do it that way.
And so could that same use variance be applied to a new building like this or not?
Theoretically, again, we're talking about a 12,000 square foot commercial building next to single family homes. It's something I mean, I can't give you a staff analysis, but we're still talking about, in theory, a significant sized commercial building with single family homes next door in a primarily residential corridor.
And a lot of apartment buildings too.
There are a few. There are a few. They're smaller, but yes, but those are permitted right now. So regardless of whether it adds traffic, that's a permitted use on that corridor right now.
Offhand, can you tell us what other types of things could go there if we change the zoning?
Other than really intense retail, like large shopping centers, about every retail use that you could think of, gas stations, pet stores, those would all be permitted there.
Okay.
But it's already gonna have, I mean, theoretically, Inwell would have a two-story, X number of square foot building.
Right.
Which would limit its use. Couldn't put a gas station in that building.
But there are a number of
I mean, you know, I know we're getting off in the weeds,
uses that could go there.
Yeah, you're
Could
again
become
focusing on the,
Right.
on the
Yeah,
proposed project
yeah,
versus the
yeah.
rezone, so, okay.
I know. I'm just-
Any additional questions?
Have we received any input for or against from the neighborhood?
Yes, I can forward to you before the next meeting, we received a couple of letters, there may actually be some of them here tonight.
I do plan to open up for public comment as well, too.
But
after
yeah,
this, so-
we did have a couple of neighbors speak at the Plan Commission meeting. I'll forward the letters that I received to you before the next meeting.
Do we have a tally for or against, or is it all against, or?
Well, usually if somebody comes to the meeting, it's because
They're against, yeah.
any more questions from Mr. Gutwein or Mr. McGuire?
What was the times of operation?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
What were your times of operation, days of the week and your hours?
Generally, it's Monday through Friday, 8 to about 6 p.m. We do have some evening hours for some of the staff because people want evening appointments. So we might have a few staff that are in until 7 or 8 p.m. We have a couple people that currently work Saturdays, but it's not normal that we're not open fully on Saturdays.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to have Rob read ordinance 2019-10 on first reading.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. What's before you is ordinance 2019-10 concerning the rezoning of the property and amending the zoning map of the city of Lebanon that been described. Pursuant to Indiana Code, Section 608, the City of Lebanon Plan Commission conducted the required public hearing on October 21st, 2019, and voted 7-0 to send an unfavorable recommendation of the rezoning petition of the property and certified its unfavorable recommendation to this body on October 22nd. Pursuant to Indiana Code, the Lebanon Plan Commission now adopts a proposal, and what's before you, though, would be approving the rezoning. And so that's, so what this ordinance would say would be that this council meeting in session is represented by Andrew Gutwein. He represents the owner of the property, Jerry Tanzel, that the petitioner seeks to have this property, which again is at 604 North Lebanon Street, 216, 218, 222, 224 West Chicago Street, and it's described in Exhibits A and B. It be rezoned from multifamily zoning to neighborhood business zoning classification, and that from and after this date, the official zoning map of the City of Lebanon shall be changed, again, from multifamily to neighborhood business zoning classification. So it's first reading.
Yep. The ordinance has been around for first reading. Is there any public comment concerning ordinance 2019-10? If there is, please just step forward, state your name. Okay, seeing none, any further discussion from council?
Can we move to go to second reading, get this over with?
I'd like to see the letters that Ben said he had and get some
Yeah,
input from
I
the
agree.
neighborhoods if they'd like to come in and make a presentation.
Yeah,
I'd like to
I
hear
think
that.
I'd like to give us a chance to review this if possible, so. Okay, so ordinance has been read on first reading. We'll address it at our next council meeting on November 12th, which is a Tuesday because we forgot Veterans Day. So we will not have our meeting on November 12th, so. Okay, next up is ordinance 2019-11, which is a consideration of alley vacation request. Ben Bontrager again.
Only one more, I promise. All right, this is kind of a housekeeping cleanup item here. The alley right-of-way, let me find my aerial photo so you can see it here a little bit better. This would be, for those of you familiar with this area, Memory Hall is here, the larger building you see here, and then the Flats building is here. This is parking for, combined parking for both of these projects. They have other parking in other locations, but this is a parking lot that serves both of those facilities. As you can see in this aerial photo, this is a recent aerial photo, but there is, that yellow highlighted area is the alley right-of-way that's still in existence. But as you can see that there are private improvements, parking, sidewalks. Actually, I think there's even an electric transformer that are all within that alley right-of-way. Those improvements were made in 1996. I have 1998 aerial photo that will show that it was very similar to this in 1998. So for over 20 years, this has been used essentially for a private use. But apparently, the alley vacation was never done at that time and should have been. It was not done, and has been used privately. We've got other alley right-of-ways that should have been vacated at some point too, where there's buildings sitting on them and things like that. So this should have been done 22 years ago and was not done. When Ironman purchased this out of bankruptcy, usually when you buy things out of bankruptcy, you don't get to see the files and what you're actually buying. It's kind of a sight unseen sort of thing. So they didn't know this alley wasn't vacated. And what they've encountered with their bank is that the bank keeps saying, this is still a public alley, right? And you said, yeah, well, you have private improvements on public property. That's usually not a good thing. Banks don't like seeing private improvements that are necessary to the use of building within the public right-of-way. So if we theoretically would ever come through and say, yeah, we need to reestablish that alley, we're gonna have to remove your parking. Banks don't like that when parking goes away that's necessary. So they came, Ironman came to us a couple months ago, filed this petition for the alley vacation just to kind of clean this up, something that should have been done a while ago. We held a TAC meeting to review it. The only utilities that are in this alley are sanitary sewer. So what we've done, and the utilities were comfortable with this, if we would record a utility easement in place of the alley right-of-way before the alley vacation was executed, the utilities is comfortable with that because that allows them access to their line at any time. So we are working on preparing those easement dedication documents as we speak, and the goal is to have that recorded before we would come back for a second reading on this vacation ordinance. And that was really the only comment. As you can see, it hasn't been used as an alley, so the street department, fire department, police don't have any issues because they already can't use an alley because it physically doesn't exist. So we have cleared up the one issue with utilities, make sure that they're squared away. So again, this is really kind of a cleanup item that should have been done a long time ago, and we're just getting it addressed now. So that's really the background I have for you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Ben concerning this?
Actually, I just comment that City of Lebanon owned that building for many years, and I started, opened my first karate school in that building in 1982. So that parking lot was part of Lebanon's property. So Lebanon sold it to Leo Stentz someplace in 1994, somewhere around there. And then, so that was all, that's been parking for a long time. I mean, I went to school there, and where the parking lot is, that was one of the school buildings that I used to go to. And Ernie Wood was out here in the audience. Her husband, Roy Wood, taught science in that building. And I used to go, you had to walk across the alley to go from class to class. And so that alley used to be straight, then they put some stuff on there, but the city owned the building, the city paved the parking lot. So the city then sold the parking lot and the building. So it's been there for a long time. So the city dropped the ball somewhere way back.
So 96 would have been mayor, no, I'm just kidding. Any other questions or comments for Ben?
Mayor Acton.
Hey, you said it, not me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have Rob read this and we'll open it for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Ordinance 2019-11, again, is consideration to vacate public ways. As Ben indicated, there's been filed with the Planning Commission a petition to vacate the public alley right-of-way that's located between North Lebanon Street and North Meridian Street, and that's all described in Exhibits A and B. The Planning Commission voted 7-0 to send a favorable recommendation to the council for its consideration. Pursuant to Indiana law, this city has authority to vacate public right-of-ways, and this ordinance would find that the public right-of-way identified in the Exhibits A and B are no longer needed for the benefit of the public. There will be a public hearing that needs to be held pursuant to Indiana Code and that the conveyance of the real estate shall be to Iron Men Properties, the Lebanon 1 LLC.
Any further discussion from council now we've heard the ordinance?
No, sir.
Any public comment? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Thank you for holding this meeting. Good to see everybody. Joyce Douglas, 409 North Meridian Street, right smack across from it. Used to go to Mike Kincaid's gym. I'm here because I'm for this. It's already happened. It's been vacated. I actually called the recorder's office and went over the details with her, and she showed a clearer picture of what we're talking about. I don't know if
Yeah, if you just, it may work. Go ahead and try it.
I don't know, it might be glaring. No?
Well, give him a second.
So the squiggly line is what's already a parking lot. And that's the vacated area they're talking about. And so I just want to say that in the recorder's office, they had it as vacated. I have the documentation from Lebanon Housing Partnership, which was Leo Stentz. And it clearly marks that, and I'll give you a copy of this, Ben. It's kind of interesting history, too. And it talks about each corner and how the alley was vacated. So where that documentation from the planning department, I don't know, it was way before anybody's time here, I think. And I just wanted to say, yep, that's okay. But I also wanted to bring out a fact that because he's got the parking lot there, he was...
Can you rotate that?
He was trying to put up he put up signs on North Meridian Street parking, and claiming the city street was his private parking and that violators would be towed. And the planning department was nice enough to have him remove that immediately. And so I just want to make that comment about, since we're talking about vacation of alley and it's a parking lot, that is a city street, that is city parking, and really anyone from the courthouse or any business can park there.
Okay.
So I just want to add that little tidbit,
Thank you, Joyce.
and thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Any additional public comment?
Oh, and I think he's getting his ducks in a row because I saw the surveyor and asked him what he was surveying, and he said for the potential buyer. So I don't know how long he's been on a tax abatement, but does that tax abatement stay with the building?
It does apply to the property, not to the owner, correct?
Okay.
Yep. Any additional public comment? Okay. Ordinance 2019-11 has been read on first reading. We'll take that up at our next council meeting, again, November 12th. And last up on my agenda is ordinance 2019-12 concerning the issuing of general obligation bond for bridge engineering and construction. Kevin, do you want to kind of come up and give a brief, and I kind of can tag team it too with you if you want, but kind of talk about what this ordinance is for. Actually, what the bond is for.
Yeah. Very briefly, this is just this is a bond issuance ordinance associated with the design and construction of two potential bridge structures, one being a small structure on Witt Road that is currently under the city's responsibility for maintenance. As we've seen the growth occurring on Witt Road, with the new Sunbrook development, the proposed Sunbrook Villas development, and then historically through the Hickory Meadows and Rolling Meadows subdivisions as well. The Witt Road Bridge is drastically undersized and needs to be widened. So this bond would allow for financing for that project. The second project that this bond would envision would be the replacement of the bridge that goes into the Elmwood subdivision, which, as many of you might recall, that was recently annexed into the city earlier this year. So the Elmwood Road and that bridge are currently city infrastructure items, and that bridge is in need of repair and more likely replacement in the near future.
Okay. We talked about this at our budget sessions as kind of two potential infrastructure projects, and frankly, the goal is to reconstruct these bridges so they're no longer on our infrastructure system. We got to make them, what, 21 feet long?
Very good, yes. As long as the bridge spans more than 20 feet, then these bridges will become county-maintained infrastructure.
Yeah, so 20 feet, 6 inches, got it.
The county the county is aware of that. The county is ready and willing to take over responsibility for these bridges. They're just not able to bear the cost to upgrade those to 20-foot spans that will require them to take over those bridges. So once we would reconstruct these bridges, they would become the county's bridges to maintain.
Okay. Any additional questions from council? Comments?
No, sir.
Did the bids come back higher than what we discussed before? Because I know it was around like 840,000 is what.
So they have not been bid. This
Oh,
is strictly
bid,
this is strictly
estimate.
issuing the bonds so we can begin engineering work
Okay.
and then also the construction with that as well. So these have not been engineered so we don't have any
Numbers
bids
at all?
yet. Yes,
Okay.
correct.
That's correct. The hope would be bring these in as inexpensively as we can. Obviously, though, meeting certain standards, and I think the goal would be to build the Witt Road Bridge first, potentially in next year's construction cycle, and then we will see about the Elmwood Bridge, which will follow behind that.
Okay.
Kevin, is it accurate to say that Elmwood would be condemned if it wasn't going to be repaired soon?
Well,
I mean, soon meaning the next 2 years.
I think that's probably a little overdramatic. I don't know that it would be condemned. It is a small structure. It has been in place for a long time. The engineering assessment we have done on it does recommend replacement. It does not state that it is in imminent danger of failure. But now that Elmwood is a city-maintained street and subdivision, we feel as though it's now imperative that that bridge be upgraded so that, public service infrastructure, fire trucks, things of that nature can safely make it in there without any worry of damage to that bridge. Keep in mind, that's the only way in and out of that subdivision, at least the only public route in and out of that subdivision.
Condemn was a little bit too strong a word.
Maybe, I don't want to scare anyone
Yeah.
that it is in danger of failure,
Yeah.
but it is not in the best shape.
Okay.
It's long overdue for replacement. Again, not in imminent danger of failure, but due for replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Brent, this is your neck of the woods. Any comments, questions?
I can't wait to get the bridge replaced on Witt Road.
Okay, very good. Even though if you're going to have to drive around, detour north?
Here, it'll be worth it.
Okay, very good.
We will
He
have to
can go
figure
by
out a
my
temporary
neighborhood, that's
detour.
fine.
Okay. Any public comment concerning this ordinance? Okay. Rob, I'll have you read it on first reading then.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2019-12 provides for the funds to pay for certain capital improvements and incidental expenses in connection therewith. As Kevin indicated, this would be to finance the costs of infrastructure improvements, namely two main bridges located on Witt Road and within the Elmwood subdivision. The amount would not exceed $1 million. There would be a public hearing for the appropriation of proceeds. This is a 20-page ordinance, so I'm going to just hit the highlights here. Section 1 talks about the determination to proceed, the declaration of intent and the authorization and the details of the bonds. That is several pages. that gets very technical on the clerk treasurer's responsibilities and how the bonds will be distributed. The form of the bond is all set out in Section 2. Again, that's what it would look like.
Could you mention the length of it? I think because that would be valuable to know what the span of term of the bond is.
Yeah, let's see, what do we?
Let's see. The final maturity would be no later than 2027.
So a 7-year bond.
Yep, yep. And I can get into other specifics if you want.
No, that's fine. I just wanted people to know it's not like a 20-year
Right,
bond.
right, yep. The Section 3 outlines, again, the sale of the bonds, the official statement that may be done in conjunction therewith. Again, the other sections get into a little bit more detail about the bonds and the proceeds, the tax covenants and all the representations. Happy to highlight some of those if you'd like, but again, it's about 20 pages. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Rob?
No, sir.
Okay. Ordinance 2019-12 has been read on first reading. We'll take that up at our next council meeting. That concludes what I have for new business. Anything from council?
Sure.
Any announcements, discussion? Any public comment? Okay. This time would entertain a motion concerning the claims.
Make a motion, we pay the claims?
We have a motion to pay the claims. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Claims are approved. And would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Again, our next city council meeting will be November 12th at 7:15 PM. Thanks for watching.